Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video unboxing and first impressions of the T-Bao Tbook R8. Now, this is a company that's based in Shenzhen, and they're relatively new to making laptops, but they've produced a few quality mid-end devices in the past few months, and the R8 is their first budget-oriented laptop. It's a full 15.6-inch unit, but it's also an ultrabook because it remains thin as well as fanless. Now, at only $170, it's also one of the least expensive full-size laptops that you can pick up on GearBest as an exclusive. We have the Sapphire Blue version for review purposes, and other specifications include a full 1080p HD resolution on the screen, in addition to a Intel Cherry Trail Z8 350 processor, which is pretty typical at this price, and also 4 gigs of built-in DDR3 RAM. It also features Intel HD Graphics 400, which is integrated, and 64 gigs of eMMC for the memory, which is expandable, of course, via micro SD card or your own accessories. So again, these configuration options are actually pretty good for the price, especially that full 1080p screen and that 4 gigs of RAM. So it should be sufficient for media streaming and for light productivity. Packaging here, very simple. It almost looks a little generic, but on the top we have just some basic branding information. We see the specs printed again in Chinese on the side. It has Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth built on in. So again, fairly decent as far as connectivity. It's a dual band 2.4G and 5G wireless. So it's also a fanless computer, again, since it's running on Intel's Cherry Trail quad-core processor, which means that there isn't going to be, background sound or noise, but it's also not going to be, the fastest. In the box sitting on the top, we have just the charger. Interestingly, this is a very compact charger. It works in Asia as well as in the States. You can see that it's super compact and easy to carry with you, which again makes sense because this is an ultrabook, which is quite slim and portable. However, it does use a proprietary kind of round pin as opposed to micro USB or USB Type-C. So again, we have just the laptop, and we'll take a closer look at this in a second. There's also the user manual, which is printed both in Chinese and English. There are QR codes that you can scan to download the full instruction manual if you need it. But it should be relatively straightforward because it is running on just a clean install of Windows 10 Home Edition. Now taking a look at the design of the R8, let's peel off the plastic, and you can see it's made out of a glossy kind of piano surface, which is made out of polycarbonate plastic. Peeling off this film, what's interesting is it actually takes away the gloss. Now we have just kind of a matte surface. On the side here, you can see it's fairly slim, pretty much comparable to most modern ultrabooks, something like the MacBook Air. Most Chromebooks are about this thickness. You have access to a USB 2.0 port on the right-hand side, along with a 3.5mm headphone jack, micro USB for memory expansion. It tapers off towards the front just to make it seem a little slimmer. And on the other side, we have a mini HDMI port. I do wish that this was full-sized, but nonetheless, you can see it has a very small space to fit it in. A second USB 3.0 port, the proprietary charging port, LED light, and that's it. So overall, you can see that this is, again, a very slim build. On the back here, there's access to stereo speakers, one on either side. Now, of course, we do wish that it would be kind of front-facing, but nonetheless, we do have stereo speakers, and there's rubber feet that prevents it from sliding around on a surface. Despite the fact that everything is made out of plastic, it feels actually pretty solid on first impressions. It doesn't seem to really flex or bend, which is impressive. Flipping open the lid here, we have what looks like another kind of glossy protector for the display, and down below here we have just the chiclet style keyboard, kind of in the same style popularized by the MacBook many years ago. In here we have actually stereo microphones. You can see one here and one on the right. This is used for noise cancellation. So if you're doing Skype or video calls, it will cancel out the background sound, which is actually pretty impressive. There are an array of LED lights that will tell you the notification of the computer, and the keyboard itself is a full-size one without a dedicated numpad on the side, which means there's more room for the actual keys themselves. So if you're just simply typing away essays, it should make for a pretty good experience. There's arrow keys, of course there's the Windows key, and then there is the trackpad, which again, pretty similar to something like a MacBook in size. It is made out of plastic though, as opposed to glass, but it has a fairly kind of tactile click at the bottom. The trackpad doesn't click in the center, you have to click on the left or the right to select things. All right, so the display here, let's remove this film, is actually a matte build, which means that you can still kind of see it when there's light facing it, or if you're outdoors. This is actually pretty good. And there is also a webcam on the very top for doing video chatting purposes. Otherwise, the bezels are actually reasonably slim, as you can see here, which makes it look fairly attractive. The bezels on the right actually seem slightly wider than the one on the left. Not sure the exact reason for that, but nonetheless, it looks good. This is as far as the hinge will go, or will open, so it doesn't fold all the way flat or 180 degrees, but it's comfortable enough, I think, for most folks if they're adjusting the position on a desk or using it, again, for viewing back media. It shouldn't be too big of a problem. Hinge itself, again, it's a one-piece hinge folded in the center, so it's actually pretty stable. So let's try powering it on and see if there's any battery by default. Power key again is located on the inside here, as opposed to being a physical button on the outside, or it's not removed from the keyboard itself, such as being a circle on the outside. But it seems like there is a bit of power, and we just see the T-Bao logo and kind of the spinning Windows 10 animation, and hopefully it's going to ask us to enter our Wi-Fi information and some basic setup for naming. Let's go through some of these settings really quickly. Next, trackpad on first impressions actually seems to be pretty responsive. Multi-touch gestures such as scrolling seems to be fairly good. It's a matte finish as well, which means that it doesn't attract fingerprints very easily, and it seems, again, pretty responsive. Let's use express settings. And roughly 5 minutes later, we are done with the setup, and we are greeted to, again, a very clean version of Windows 10 Home Edition. It seems like there is a pending upgrade to the Anniversary Edition, probably, that we can tap on if you want to install it. But otherwise, you can see that the main interface, very traditional, Cortana at the bottom. We have access to these Metro UI tiles. You can see there's very little content that's pre-installed, so that leaves you with a good amount of space for you to customize the computer with your own programs. It's running on, again, full Windows 10, which gives you all the legacy apps that you would want to use and install, as opposed to something like Chromebook, which is a bit more limited to mobile applications. And on the bottom, you can see that we are connected to, hopefully, Wi-Fi, and there's also the battery indicator, so it seems like there's about 80% of battery that is on here when you first take it out of the packaging, and the reception for the Wi-Fi also seems to be fairly good. If we tap on the file manager just to take a look at how much space is remaining before we end this video, we can see that general navigation is decent. There are moments of sluggishness here and there, but it's not too bad, especially at this low price. So again, 47 gigs of the basically 64 gigs are free, so there is about 15 gigs taken up by the operating system. We are running on a fully activated and licensed version of Windows 10, and I've kind of hidden kind of the key below here, but otherwise, again, 4 gigs of RAM, the Intel Atom X5 processor, which has a base rate clock speed of 1.44 gigahertz, and it gets a little faster than that when it gets into kind of turbo mode, but all in all, it actually seems to work quite well. If I tap on the battery status, we can see that 85% has an estimated around 3 hours remaining, so I'm supposing that a full charge will get you close to 5, maybe 6 hours on a single go, which is average. It's not terribly long, but it's not bad either. All right, so let's just spend our very quick hands-on unboxing and first impressions look at the T-Bao Tbook R8, part of the T-Book series. And again, what's unique about this laptop is going to be that full 15.6-inch size at a relatively affordable price with decent enough specs for most users out there that aren't looking for a ton of demanding games and apps to run. It's not going to work fantastic for things like Photoshop, but again, for light web browsing, you should be sufficient here. Again, the price is the most attractive thing, especially when most Chinese OEMs and Chinese Ultrabooks tend to be within the 11 to 13-inch range. This is really an exception because we are seeing less and less 15.6-inch laptops these days. So if you do want a full-sized experience for, again, really watching media and entertainment, this might be a good option to consider at a, again, low price. So we'll do more testing, of course, and come out with a much more complete review soon. But for now, this has just been our video unboxing. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This is the T-Bao Tbook R8.